Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Back to School Safety September, day 6. Today, we're going to cover one of the most asked questions I get, no matter if I'm speaking at a school, a conference, stopped on the street, asked by a friend, whatever, and particularly by school administrators is, should schools arm their teachers? And this is a not a one size fits all answer. The short answer to that may surprise you. The short answer to that is yes, you should arm all your teachers. But that is not all of it. What do you arm them with? Right? I by no means am saying that you should arm every teacher in the country with a firearm. I'm not saying that. Um, what I am saying is that you need to arm them with some other things first. Okay. Before we get into that, and before I go into that, let's get into our Bible verses for the day. I chose two to support what we're talking about today. First here is let me swap that around, is Luke 22:35, 35 through 28 out of the ESV. And this is Jesus speaking to his disciples. Scripture must be fulfilled in Jesus. And he said to them, when I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, did you lack anything? And they said nothing. He said to them, but now let the one who has the money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack. And let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me. And he was numbered with the transgressors. For what is written about me has its fulfillment. And they said, look, Lord, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it is enough. And then the second scripture I chose for today is Psalm 23 out of the ESV. The Lord is my shepherd, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. Now, rod was used by shepherds as a defensive weapon against predators. Staff was used to guide the sheep or rescue them when they got into a hard place with the hook. They comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So those are the scriptures, but let's get back that I chose today because a lot of Christians struggle with arming themselves, and they shouldn't. They should not. And unfortunately, some have twisted scripture to fit something that it wasn't intended. Out of the ESV, if you haven't read the commentary and the notes out of the ESV Study Bible, it's phenomenal. It frames out Luke 22:35 through 38 masterfully, and I couldn't recommend it more. So now, what do we arm your teachers with? Okay. One, you have to arm your teachers with knowledge, with training, right? So every one of your teachers should be trained on what to do through active assailant or active shooter training. And then from that point on, it's going to vary on the individual, your policies, your state, your local, and federal guidelines. Not everyone who wants to carry a firearm in school, particularly a private school, which is a Christian private school, should be able to. There should be a very high standard. Now, I am constantly doing security site assessments and recommendations for schools, and I tell them somebody on the grounds, minimum 1, but should be more than 1, should be armed with a firearm and trained on how to use it in stressful situations like an active shooter at a school. That is not just your concealed carry person. Okay. Not everyone is meant or built to be in that role. And some people who are going to want that role should not be in that role. And, you know, but everyone who wants to be in that role should be giving a chance to train to a standard and hold the standard if they want to be a part of the solution. Right now, you have to understand that once you welcome firearms on your campus, you're going to open up a bunch of can of worms. Okay. One, are you safer with an armed presence, i.e., your own armed security guard there, or a third-party contracted armed security guard there, or school resource officer, et cetera? Yes, you are. People often ask me, should our security be covert or overt? Covert being that no one knows who the security guy is, and overt being everyone knows who the security is. Unless you are extremely thin, meaning it's one person and you have no confidence in them, I recommend overt, meaning people open carrying that they can see that there's a firearm. So bad guys know this is not the school to mess with. Okay. Now, culturally, that might do some things to your school that you're not, and you might want to do, maybe their firearm is concealed, but they have a security badge, a security hat, they may have something that dignifies them as a security response. I, again, prefer, there's schools out there who during drop off and pickup, people are concealed or open carrying out there for private schools, and bad guys come up and they see a bunch of armed people and they're like, no way, not this place. I like that. Covert, I can work if you put signage everywhere stating we have armed people here that are not afraid to defend our kids, something around those lines, and we will defend those kids. Now they're going to ascribe to more people to carrying than probably actually are. But I cannot state this strong enough. If you are carrying a firearm in a school, you need to train and train and train. It is a terrible responsibility. But trust me, you don't want to accidentally, when you're engaging a bad guy, shoot an innocent. Now, unless people are going to live this 24/7 and that's all they do, and they're going to schools all the time and they have an unlimited budget to shoot, you're not going to get that person normally. But with the right training and the right mindset, you can set up and train people that you can sustain at a reasonable level to set up ambush fights in your school, gunfights in your school, from a position of cover where you win the gunfight and the bad guy loses. You're not going to be a Navy SEAL. You're not going to be a SWAT guy. You're not going to be James Bond or Jason Bourne or any of these other things. But you can set up with your classroom in a safe position. So when a bad guy should try to come through your door, you and only you win that fight and no one else gets hurt. That's how we train people to do this. The people who should be making a shot, in the movie scene that everyone plays through the head, is there's a shooting and there's, hundreds of kids running down the hall, and the bad guy is at one end of the hall and the good guy, is at the other end, and he's going to make that shot with kids running by. That should not happen. And that's going to sort itself out quickly at the first shot or the first sight of a gun. People are going to run, and who the bad guy is and is going to become very clear. But the sooner you can engage that bad guy, the sooner it'll stop. If you just look at the attack that we had in Georgia, as soon as bad guys showed up with guns, he surrendered, right? So the terrible amount of crime or suffering and damage and injury and loss of life happen in seconds. So the closer you are to that and the more people that you have trained to respond to that, if it happens in a classroom, the better it will be. By simply arming yourself and letting them know that you are armed, you will avoid most non-committed attackers because they want to go to the foolish schools who are not armed, who do not have a solution. Okay. Now, again, within this spectrum of armed schools and non-armed school or arming your teachers, you have nothing, and then you have firearms. Before you get to firearms, you should have active shooter training, what to do, with barricading, improvised weapons, using scissors, blunt objects, chemicals, if you're allowed to use them in your state, city. There's a lot of options that you can do there. And all the way at the end, there are different shades of firearms. There is going to carry a firearm on them and engage, if they come in their classroom or if they have the chance to set up an ambush and take one down. That is the lowest level of armed that I would consider. Okay. That is your teacher who is not there as security, that has been authorized and qualified to train, has a firearm on them. Now, understand that whenever you have someone who's carrying a firearm on them, you open yourself up to negligence. Do they leave their gun in the bathroom or in a desk instead of having it on them? If they're going to carry the firearm, it has to be on them, because if it's on them, it can't be in a student's hand. That's going to be one of the policies you have. If you have it, you cannot take it off you. It is on you, because the day the teacher leaves a firearm in the bathroom or on their desk or gets whatever, you're going to have issues. And I don't want to see that. And I hope it never happens. Okay. The highest level of firearms training is you have a security group or a team or guy who is going to go, if there's an attacker, go find them and engage that person. That person needs to be the real deal, former military who knows what they're doing and is armed appropriately, should have a bulletproof vest, and has practiced this and is maintaining a qual at a high level. Okay. And everybody who wants to be on that team, great if you want to be on that team, but you should have to maintain that as well. Very few people should be qualified to do that. Again, I am all for everybody who wants to be a part of this solution to be part of the solution, to be armed and all that, but they have to be able to have the right mindset, the right competence, and show the right aptitude and ability to operate a firearm in certain ways. So arm your teachers with knowledge, arm your teachers with improvised weapons and training and everything else that you can, chemicals, scissors, all the things that we cover in our training, up to and including firearms, if they're the right person, can qualify and maintain that standard. And then you should always, if you're allowed to, in your state, city, region, have an armed security guard there to engage bad guys, because that's when it's going to stop. That's how you minimize casualties. Until a good guy with a gun gets there, bad things are going to happen unless they make a mistake, go in a classroom, and you've taken our training, and then you end the threat right there in the first room. All right, that's all I have for you. If you like this, please, if you have any questions, put them in the comments on the YouTube video. I know responding to marketing emails is challenging, so just put them in the YouTube. We'll look at all the comments. We'll answer all the questions. If you want to email me at jasonp@tridentshield.net, I am happy to answer all your questions. If there's any topics you want covered going forward for the rest of safety or back to school safety September, let me know. God bless.